Welcome to the Flash Finds podcast, the world's fastest podcast where we explore how Facebook can help you with the stuff you're into. I'm your host, Emma Rogue, and today I'm with creator and chef Chris Cho. Chris, what do people get out of your reels?
So people are super intimidated when they want to first try cooking Korean food, but through Facebook Reels, I make it super fun and easy and accessible within a 30 to 60-second video.
Reels is the cheat code. Thanks, Chris. See you next time on the Flash Finds podcast, all about discovering the stuff on Facebook you care about. Bye.
So today we wrap up our fall classic series called World Series Weather. We're working to make our podcast webpage more intuitive, and we're planning to provide a search engine based on subject matter. So if you want to hear only World Series Weather, you can just binge that. Now, I've already heard from one young fan who loves baseball as much as I do, who suggested this as a feature. So, Parker McLean from Unionville, Ontario, we're working on it. Hi, I'm Chris May, host of This Day in Weather History, a podcast from the Weather Network in Canada. On November 4th of 2001, one of the more unique weather occurrences coincided with one of the conclusions of one of the most intense seasons in baseball history. This day in weather history. It was one of the most intense games ever played because the New York Yankees were in it this year of all years. And for 2001, it was also one of the most intense seasons ever played in Major League Baseball. The Yankees were a juggernaut. They had already won 3 straight World Series titles, and they were looking for a 4th. They were a legit dynasty. The Arizona Diamondbacks were in a dogfight for the first ever championship in team history. And on this day in weather history, the two clubs and storylines collided in a deciding Game 7 to finish the longest baseball season in history. And that, too, is its own story. Major League Baseball in 2001 will always be remembered not for the games that took place during the regular season, but for the patriotism and heroic tributes that took place after the horrific events of the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the Pentagon, in Pennsylvania, and in downtown New York, with the total demolition of WTC 1 and 2 when they were struck by terrorist-piloted commercial airliners. Sports is not supposed to be this way, but still somehow it seemed fitting that the city of New York would show immeasurable strength and host the event after suffering such a devastating loss only a few months earlier. The season itself was put on an indefinite hold on the 11th, and by the time it resumed weeks later, the World Series began on Saturday, October 27th of 2001. At the time, it was the latest start date ever for a World Series. And the last 3 games of the World Series was the first time Major League games, other than exhibitions, were actually even ever played in the month of November. The Diamondbacks were clinging to a 1-0 lead late in the game going into the 7th inning. They had a championship on their minds, but this is the slimmest of leads against a team full of firepower. Then the weather decided that it would play a role. In the top of the frame, a small but irritating dust storm blew into Bank One Ballpark in Arizona, sending dirt and trash flying all around the field. Fans and players alike were shielding their eyes from the dust and dirt while also working to get the grit out of their eyes at the same time. Obviously, blowing dust is a common event in the Arizona desert, but the rain that followed minutes later was certainly unexpected. Essentially, what we had was a cold front sweeping in and a gust front out ahead of it, pushing the arid, dry desert dust up and out over the stadium and everything else, preceding the passage of the front itself. But the front was associated with a low that had a moisture feed, and that brought the rain and its close proximity in the timing to the dust that came out ahead of it. There were fans in the stands who were now covered in mud. The dust, still fresh, had now caked on many who were now getting rained on. It was a party in AZ. Mike Stanton, relief pitcher for the New York Yankees, said in his post-game comments that he and his teammates couldn't see because of the sand in their eyes. He quipped, and I quote, "We were asking, this is a domed stadium. Why don't they close the roof?" Now, it's a good question, of course, but it didn't matter because, and I mean this, literally when the dust settled, Yankees closer and the only major leaguer to be voted unanimously into the Baseball Hall of Fame, Mariano Rivera, struck out the side in the 8th and looked to do the same in the 9th and win New York's 4th straight World Series title. But as fate would have it, he found himself in a spot with the bases loaded after accidentally hitting a batter to fill him up. Then, with Luis Gonzalez up and 1 strike against him already, he just got enough of the next pitch to knock a soft floater over the drawn-in first ballot Hall of Famer Derek Jeter's glove, and that barely reached the outfield grass. And with that, the winning run crossed the plate, and the Arizona Diamondbacks were World Series champions for the first time ever. And they did it in their home ballpark, in a desert that featured both a dust storm, then a downpour of rain, and all on this day in World Series weather history. Tomorrow is November 5th, and for this one, we have something truly special lined up again. Check out the TV station, The Weather Network in Canada, or hit us up online because we have podcast video shorts now playing. There's one produced for tomorrow. Watch tomorrow after you wake up and listen to this podcast wherever you listen normally, because in tomorrow's video short, you get a preview version of the day's episode and recorded right here in the TDIWH podcast studio. We've got it loaded with video to really bring the story to life. And it's on TV and at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. Check it out today. And what are we featuring tomorrow? You must remember 2013 and the events of Typhoon Haiyan, known in the Philippines as Super Typhoon Yolanda. It was one of the most powerful tropical cyclones ever recorded. And we're going back there tomorrow. On this day in weather history with me, your host, Chris May.